Nobody knows anything. That's the point we often make on this show, but it's not totally true. A few people know a lot. Michael Burry knows a lot. He's one of the smartest people in American finance. Who was Michael Burry? Well, he was one of the very few Americans who understood that the housing bubble of the late 2000s would lead to system-wide destruction of our economy, which of course in the end it did. How did Michael Burry manage to see that coming? Well, unlike most investors, he's also a physician. He is trained to assess problems empirically on the basis of evidence rather than theory. If you're interested in the details of what Burry was saying in 2007 and 2008, read or watch The Big Short, which is based largely on his predictions of the last financial crash. So with that in mind, what is Michael Burry saying about the economy now? Well, among other things, Burry is highly concerned about something called modern monetary theory, MMT. MMT is essentially the belief that big governments like ours can pay for everything indefinitely simply by printing more money. Now, that's an old idea, but there's a problem with it. Printing more money causes inflation, inevitably. No one denies that. It's always true. What makes MMT new and alluring is that its theorists claim to have a solution to that problem. Radically increase taxes. Less cash in the system would mean less inflation. If people don't have income to spend, prices can't go up as quickly. When you have no money, you can't overpay for goods and services. No inflation. Does that sound appealing to you? To a certain kind of socialist academic, it all makes perfect sense. What does the public think of this plan? Well, no one's asked them because nobody cares. But Michael Burry thinks the rest of us should be prepared for the consequences of this. Quote, "The U.S. government is inviting inflation with its MMT-tinged policies," Burry wrote over the weekend in a series of tweets. Burry went on to quote extensively from a 1974 book called Dying of Money, which explains what Germany looked like 100 years ago, right before hyperinflation there changed that country and the rest of the world forever. As it collapsed, the German economy took on, quote, unmistakable characteristics. One was the great wealth, at least of those favored by the boom. Many great fortunes sprang up overnight. The cities had an aimless and wanton youth. Prices in Germany were steady, and both business and the stock market were booming. The exchange rate of the mark against the dollar and other currencies actually rose for a time, and the mark was momentarily the strongest currency in the world. Side by side with the wealth were pockets of poverty. Greater numbers of people remained on the outside of the easy money, looking in, but not able to enter. The crime rate soared. Accounts of the time tell of a progressive demoralization which crept over the common people, compounded of their weariness with the breakneck pace to no visible purpose, and their fears from watching their own precarious positions slip while others grew so conspicuously rich. Speculation alone, while adding nothing to Germany's wealth, became one of its largest activities. The fever to join in turning a quick mark infected nearly all classes. Everyone from the elevator operator up was playing the market, end quote. And then, inevitably, of course, it all collapsed. Quote, the Deutschmarks that existed in the world in the summer of 1922, all of them, were not worth enough by November of 1923 to buy a single newspaper or a tram ticket. That was the spectacular part of the collapse, but most of the real loss in money wealth had been suffered much earlier, end quote. A book worth getting. Does it sound familiar? Don't think about it, assures the Biden administration. We've got a female Treasury Secretary. The critical diversity component of American economic policy has been covered. Rest assured. But Michael Burry isn't resting assured, and he's not convinced. Yesterday, he sent this tweet. People say I didn't warn last time. I did, but no one listened. So I warn this time, and still no one listens. But I will have proof I warned.